what? I'm in Miami this week for the Real Vision crypto conference. I'll definitely spend some time today at the end on crypto. But it was a big week, and I'm going to go through the Nvidia ecosystem panic at the beginning of the week, highlight, make sure you see everything that went on. I'll talk more about the DeepSeek impact. I did do a Substack on kind of my bigger views on it, but I'll also give you the impact from what I believe and also show you some things that I used it for throughout this. Mag7 had a few earnings reports, and I'll go through the calls and the capex using DeepSeek. Big announcements or realizations in humanoids, AI agents, and lifespan, all impacted by DeepSeek as well. There was some inflation data out, which I'll bring up, and then Bitcoin. So just to get things going, you can see the fall in Bitcoin, largest fall since March. It was down 17%, and then towards the end of the week, it closed at 120. So it was still down. It didn't really bounce much. I'm not going to go through whether it matters or not, because the reality is, I think what ended up happening, rather than focus on buying it, the future, whether it's in 4 years, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, wherever, the moat that people thought they had around their business was definitely impacted by it. So instead of the stock just trading down, I think anyone would agree that the earnings for this year and next year are probably likely to continue to come in and possibly surprise. And if that's the case, that's great. I just don't think you're getting 100% moves in it anymore. And I think, if anything, there should be multiple compression on the name, and that's what happened. So rather than focus on whether it's still a good stock, it should produce earnings. But is it going to be giving you the 50 to 100% returns that you may have expected? I'm not so sure about that. In terms of the data centers, this is what happened to the Goldman Sachs data center. So the ecosystem data centers were hit hard. Another trade that was hit hard was the power trade. You not only had the power stocks or stocks related to it, but also nat gas went down. I think in the end, this was an overreaction. I also think the data center side to some degree was an overreaction. Power certainly to me was an overreaction, because I think people are still underestimating how much power is going to be needed. The data center side will still be built out. The question is, are the multiples there too high? And in some of the power situations, the multiples may have been too high as well. Momentum. Big day. I've talked about the importance of momentum. I do think it'll be hard for the trades that worked last year, like Nvidia and some of the others, to be as dominant. I think that's still a theme that I've talked about this year. I just don't think momentum is going to have the same kind of year. It may not necessarily go down, but I think you want to move into other places, and that is what happened this week. As I kind of go through this, I won't get into specific names, but some of the companies that benefited, like software, went to new all-time highs. Things like ARC and some of these things that normally trade at a higher beta, they actually finished the week near unchanged or slightly down. In terms of momentum on a broader level, this is each of the sector, this is sector momentum: healthcare, consumer discretionary, industrials, and TMT. They were all hit this week, but the S&P itself, you can't even tell that anything big happened this week. And so everyone tried to turn this into some big market topping event. And really, to me, this was a major extension of productivity gains, because as you'll hear from most people that go through it, it might be bad for Nvidia down the road, but in the short run, it accelerates a lot of the app development, a lot of developers. It allows and gives software companies the ability of getting a model for a cheaper price and incorporating it in there with chain of thought. So I think this helps in the long run. For the month, S&P was up 2.7%. So again, solid month. The Mag7, again, the chart looks fine, meaning there's nothing wrong, nothing happened. I still think the Mag7 is going higher, and I'll stick with my opinion that it'll be less of a good year for the Mag7 than has been in the past. Maybe it's a market performing year, maybe it slightly outperforms the S&P, but I don't think you're getting 2 times the S&P anymore. I think it's going to be, S&P like. And here's the first example: S&P was up 2.7%, and the Mag7 for the month was up 2.5. That includes the Nvidia fall. So you had a lot of moving pieces that were actually up. One podcast that I would highly recommend if you guys are still looking into what DeepSeek means. By now, I'm sure everyone's read conflicting things. I do not think you can use X. For all of you who sent me X things, Many of the things you sent me, the people are biased. I'm looking for people that are just talking about things. This is one of them. I think Alex Campbell, formerly of Bridgewater, I believe, and Rose AI currently. I thought this was a great one. He's a macro person, macro thinker, and I think that's what you need at this point. And you can see just based on some of the topics, I would highly recommend listening to Alex on this. I wrote something called The Jaws of Disruption. Again, I've talked about this on the video, but I just wanted to make sure in case you guys want to read something. I think the most important news is that overnight things can be out innovated. I've made the comment since I say Bitcoin is the purest AI trade. For those of you who continue to doubt it, that was another situation where over the last year, the biggest down move for a day in Bitcoin has been about 8%. And we've now had, I think, five of the Mag 8, including Broadcom, have had single days that were down more than Bitcoin. So whether it's volatility adjusted, whether it's what's going on, I'm going to continue to say the same thing, that disruptive technology that will out innovate everything at a rapid exponential pace. So you need something that is going to be here over the test of time. I don't think any innovations, including the Mag 7, are going to last for the long run. And I think Bitcoin has a moat around it as the true winner. And so AI is going to disrupt, and money will continue to move into the crypto space over time. Mark Newton, one of my favorite technicians, I think he said it well at the end. Quirky tape, big tech consolidating. We saw that with the Mag 7, but you're getting breakouts in EM, you're getting China moving higher, you're getting precious metals moving higher, yen, Europe. And that just says, why are you focused on Nvidia? And I couldn't agree more. Tech is fine, but you know what? You're looking at other things this year. This is a different kind of year, and that gets into the momentum. In terms of the long-term history of the S&P, January has a huge bias towards it, meaning you're up a higher percentage of the time from that point until the end of the year, more than a normal year. And this just highlighted from Ryan Dietrich, just if you're up, what happens going forward if you're down in January, and you can just see the difference in the numbers, and the S&P finished higher for the month. So if you're using history and data, S&P has got another reason to be bullish on it for the next year. This is from Hugging Space CEO, and this just gets into the impact that DeepSeek has had. And this is talking specifically with the downloads. I just, Hugging Face sees this. You've also seen the Apple downloads, it being the largest download app. Basically, people are using it. And so it's having an impact in terms of the power of decentralization and open source AI. David Sachs, the AI and crypto czar, talked about it in the same way in terms of, try DeepSeek without downloading the app. You don't have to deal with a Chinese company. And I included this because Aravind is the CEO down here of Perplexity. And for those of you who have not used Perplexity, this is now the reason why. The world's most powerful reasoning model, DeepSeek, with reasoning traces, is now on Perplexity. And I immediately, after reading that and then going through a bunch of stuff where he talked about it, went through, he showed this on here, and I started using it. And so one of the things, Perplexity Pro, you now get 500 daily DeepSeek queries without censorship and without prompts going back to China. So if you want to use it, I think you get a 1-month free trial. The free users get 5 daily queries. If you want to get 500, you can go use it and start playing with it. Some of the stuff I'm going to show you today is there. And as someone who uses it, taking a little shot here, there's no silver lining right now with Nvidia. I just bought some more Nvidia. So this is someone who believes in the Jevon paradox in terms of you lower the price to a low level, more people are going to use it, and that more people using AI is going to need more GPUs. Regardless of that debate, I think it's useless. I think everyone has a bias towards it, regardless of who they are. Either they're long Nvidia or they missed Nvidia. Either way, unless you're listening to some people that have no skin in the game, it's not worth it. Just showing some more people that are speaking out about the power of Perplexity, and these are the reasons why I decided to go give it another shot. It's not that I was avoiding it, it's that I was using other AI tools, and I would occasionally go there for searching, but now I started to use it more. Michael Dell coming out and speaking on the positives. Again, this is all just reasons why this should not be viewed in some negative way. It should be viewed in a positive, that we're commoditizing artificial intelligence. We're allowing developers all around the world to start using it, and that should speed up productivity. And Goldman Sachs they went through this. DeepSeek raises micro risks, but macro upside. Questions around whether the cost disinflation stage of the AI investment cycle is arriving sooner than expected. That's one of the questions that went on. And I think if that's the case, and again, I'll get into inflation later on, limited adoption for AI is still the main bottleneck to unlocking the productivity gains. So this whole thing here has been about productivity, and they're basically saying that this could have an impact now. The emergence of a global competitor raises upside risk to global adoption, productivity, and then particularly in EM. So I want to bring that up a lot because that is one of the reasons why, to me, crypto is the biggest, and Bitcoin in particular, but crypto overall. You're going to have a massive rise in emerging market countries where they now get to use the best AI model for zero. So for everyone over in Africa and Indonesia and Pakistan and Brazil and Argentina and all around the globe and India that couldn't afford to, now they have access to it. This is going to speed up small companies competing with larger companies. So it is a decentralizing event, which in the long run is going to hurt big tech earnings slowly, not overnight. There's not some competitor for Google today, but they already have the problem of spending tons of money, which they're going to continue to do. So Dan Ives, who also did some interviews this week, he definitely has a bias. He's positive on Nvidia, but if you go listen to him, you'll get some stuff. But I really included him here for to highlight that the earnings were happening for the companies, and this is what I did in Perplexity just after the earnings call. For those of you who can't do it, what you're going to see is I just asked it to give me the highlights from their earnings report. And go through the numbers, highlight in particular anything on the AI side. So they did that on Meta. And then I asked for insights on the earnings call. And so it went through. And again, Mark Zuckerberg were prioritizing AI as a growth sector, and their expenditures are still going to happen. So anyone that doubted they were going to do capex, not going to happen. Our investments in AI infrastructure, including data centers large enough to cover a significant portion of Manhattan, will drive long-term growth and innovation. None of this stuff has changed. We continue to make good progress on AI glasses and the future of social media. Very, very big year. And he says 2025 will be a pivotal year for AI advancements, emphasizing our commitment to lead. It is a big year for AI agents. It's a big year for getting them on glasses, getting them on iPhones, and just getting more access where you're going to have more apps coming out. So for the software side, this speeds it up, and that's why you saw a lot of the software companies moving higher. Apple, again, same thing. This is what you can do in Perplexity. It's amazing. I'm telling you, you can bring up real-time prices, charts, the whole thing. As someone who still uses Bloomberg, I don't know how people wouldn't be using this right now for what's going on. And for those of you who've paid for software over the past year for AI software, I apologize in terms of for you spending the money on it, given that Perplexity, this is $20 a month. But regardless, there's a lot of cool things and you can have conversations on it. So just in terms of Apple's earnings, and then you get back into what Zuckerberg said to his employees and predicted that 2025 would be the year of a highly intelligent, personalized digital assistant reaching 1 billion users. That is the key thing, is we're going to have massive usage going forward. And that's why for people that think the data center trade is over, this speeds up the amount of users. This speeds up the app development for sure. Again, 3 years out, some of the efficiency gains from DeepSeek, I'm sure will be built in. But for the time being, if anything, we have a shortage anyway. I find it hard to believe that we're not going to see increased demand from this side. In terms of Microsoft, which also reported a bunch of stuff in there, but I think in terms of AI capacity, Microsoft is still supply constrained in terms of AI capacity. We have been short power and space. So energy and data centers are the problem. So anyone looking for capex spend changes, not happening. IBM, kind of been a boring company over the last whatever years. Biggest jump in one day in a long time for the company. They went through, and again, AI bookings. I'm not going to show the IT consulting firms, but them, Accenture, all this, the stock blew out over the course of the last month and a half. So company looks for much better growth trajectory. It's consulting business starts cashing in more in AI. The reason I'm showing all this stuff, this is really good for GDP. It is really good for inflation to not go higher, or at least to have a cap on it. The productivity gains are going to start showing up faster than what people thought. The revenue side will be coming through faster than what people thought. So I would just really be on top of the fact that this was a big week for productivity in terms of spreading it around the world. I'm showing this tweet because In an interview with Peter Diamandis a while ago, with Imad, the CEO of Stability AI. He's a good person to follow on Twitter. He had talked. This is from back in 2023, basically saying, and I'm getting through this. He's talking all about what the future will look like and what you do and what you should be doing with your kids, and everything turned to be right. He just did another interview, and I think it was really good. He had talked about DeepSeek a while ago. He had tweeted about it. It's a good interview. It's with Peter Diamandis. It's the second one that I would go through. And the reason that one's important is it gets into what I want to kind of go through that Elon Musk talked about. If you really, again, I'm going to say this over and over again, if you're listening to macro people talking about what the economy is going to look like this year and they're bearish and all this stuff. So DeepSeek comes out and people get bearish again. And I watch people that I even spoke on panels with recently talk about how, yep, this is it, the top is in. It's a productivity boom. And I just don't understand this concept. But then you're getting the next thing, which is we've had a week of Musk talking about humanoids, talking about the importance of the speed. It's the speed of innovation which matters. And I just, we're at a time where things are speeding up. And that's what DeepSeek brought in. Brett Adcock, who's the head of a company that's focused on humanoid robots, they were just talking about signed our second commercial customer. So he's the head of Figure. And I bring this up because you can go look at these things. I had included or tweeted a video that he put out from the CES about this thing, Unitree. If you haven't seen this video, this is Unitree Robotics. This here is the Spring Festival Gala in China. And these are all humanoids doing a synchronized dance. So again, you have to see this stuff to realize that it's already here. It may not be rolling out, but it will be rolled out, and that's what Musk said. Likely to sell Optimus to rivals in 2026. Revenue potential for bots north of $10 trillion. So this is coming. This is not a guess, and economists do not build this into their forecast. But if you have robots, and the Unitree ones, from what I remember, about $15,000 for the middle one, you're talking about bringing them into companies where this is going to bring productivity. It's going to have people working, humanoids working 24 hours a day, whatever you want. This is coming soon. So if you're not building this into your forecast and people are saying, I think there's going to be a recession and people are going to be out of work, and again, you have to realize what's going on. The AI assistant, so this is the agent thing coming this year. This year, not soon. Operator started. OpenAI launched it. This got lost in the shuffle last week because of DeepSeek coming out. But Operator, if you haven't seen it, again, this is an agent thing. They were charging $200. I'm sure this is going to have to go down. Why? Combinator basically went through and what startups they're going to want to fund. And these are all the types of jobs and what's going to go on and everything. And if you read this stuff, again, we're just at this time where everyone can see it happening in Silicon Valley, but for some reason on Wall Street, people are having a hard time when it comes to thinking about the market, thinking about productivity. It's just here. Dario Amodei spoke this week again, and he believes AI can double human lifespans in 5 years. So again, when you're talking about these kinds of advancements and people are worried about where NVIDIA's earnings are or what's going on, it just doesn't matter. Masa-san put out in his newsletter from SoftBank Division Fund. Again, these statements are from people that are heavily involved in it, and they're in there every day. And the analysts on Wall Street are just not part of this. They just can't be, particularly on the economic side. So when you read something from Goldman Sachs about what is coming, I think you do have to pay attention to it. I think it's more important for you to focus on it. And I really want to use the next 5 slides as a point. So here is what we're talking about in the capex spend, and we just got confirmation from 2 of them that it's going to happen, which means from all of them it's going to happen. And you just look at these numbers. Why would you want to fade this? Like, why would you be looking to short NVIDIA? Maybe it doesn't go up as much, but to get bearish on it or to think that this isn't going to happen, why are you going to bet against this in the economy? When you look at the revenue or the growth, here's Meta's growth. Like, this is parabolic. Like, this is not the way Ford looks. This is not the way most companies look that have no growth. So to be really bearish on this stuff or to think that the US economy is going to fall when this kind of parabolic growth is growing, and I do mean at this time when you're this big of a company, like back here in 21, you look at the difference in size between the company now. Again, these growth rates are insane, and they happen in an economy that's not growing rapidly. But why would you be bearish on that? And there's Nvidia. Like, why do you want to short this? Why do you even want to talk about it? Why do you want to have a debate on it? I understand getting out of it is a long because you just don't think it's going to grow at these growth rates, and I happen to agree with that. But maybe the stock at now 29 or wherever it is PE wise is fine. But I just know it's not the most important conversation, and that feeds into this. At some point, people have to start getting bored with looking at macroeconomic data. But every time I hear someone talk about inflation now as the big trade, you cannot ignore what has happened. And I think it is a little bit scary for people to be just ignoring this fact. So, inflation hasn't gone back up. And what we got this week, when you go through the numbers, it's actually, it's starting to seem like it's not only going to sit down here, but I'd be more worried that even if we get a little bit of move higher, that it's going to come back down again. I think you're starting to get to the point that core, not headline, because I think we're still going to have power issues, but I also don't think that you're going to have oil going up to 95 to 100. Do I think it's going to trend higher? Yes. Do I think we should be closer to 80 than 70? Yes. But I'm not so sure we're really going to get above 80, even if we have a power shortage and we get through this. So 3-month and 6-month inflation measures. So the 3-month and 6-month annualized inflation measures are now running lower than the 12-month measures. So the 12-month is already here, the blue line, and the other ones are lower. So you're starting to get a scenario where you really can't ignore the data, and you still have people saying Federal Reserve preferred inflation gauge was 2.6, and then excluding inflation it was up 2.8. Both metrics have risen slightly over since the summer. I just think if you're paying attention to this, it's not as important as what's happening with DeepSeek. DeepSeek comes out, it means more productivity, it's good. In terms of Bitcoin, for everyone who wants to be scared, Michael Saylor is on the cover of Forbes this week. You've got Jim Cramer saying, if you want to own Bitcoin, own Bitcoin. I own Bitcoin. You should own Bitcoin. It's a great thing to have in your portfolio. So we probably have the two biggest fades in terms of what normally means a top. So now the way I look at it is Bitcoin probably goes down for the next at least week. Maybe not, though. And if it doesn't, I feel bad for everyone in the Wall Street world that uses that as a complete fade, because once it goes through those two, then I don't know what's going to stop it. Jerome Powell said banks are perfectly able to serve crypto customers. So you got that going. You got the Senate Banking Committee on Digital Assets finally being created. Just amazing to see this even in the government. The public hearings on strategic Bitcoin reserves, they need to be held, and they need to be held soon. And the reason is, head of Czech Central Bank wanted to buy billions of euros in Bitcoin. And so what immediately to Cynthia Loomis said, if we snooze, Americans lose, we have to go buying. This is very similar. And if you just watch where foreigners stepped into the AI world, why would Trump wait around? If he was waiting and thought they had an advantage in AI, why would he not be involved? So if anything this week again from DeepSeek, it not only helps from smaller users who are more crypto focused and in countries where they need to put their money into Bitcoin, from hiding it from the government and protecting it from the banks and the government there and their currency not devaluing. In terms of the state by state race for a Bitcoin strategic reserve, we're still moving forward on all these. This is what you've got where the bill's introduced. Committee approval. Now we've got 2 in the House and Senate approval. Again, I think people are underestimating how many Democrats are going to be forced in some locations to vote for it, because I think if you don't, it's going to be held against you in future elections. Apollo, securitized, launched, tokenized private credit fund. So we're getting more and beginning to get real world assets. I want to finish up again with Perplexity. I asked Perplexity, I would like to know how to think about what is Bitcoin defined by the current fiat assets, what drives its price, and what other assets move like it and why. The reason I say this is I heard someone on a podcast while I was here say that basically Bitcoin is just levered technology stocks, and I just want to completely shit all over that. Number one, when you say tech stocks, which ones do you mean? I mean, is that the Mag7? Then say the Mag7. Because if you say tech stocks, you're not including Amazon, you're not including Netflix, you're not including Meta. When you say tech stocks and it's just a levered tech stock, that's not a legitimate thing, because it has done very well while a lot of tech stocks have not done well. ARK is unchanged over the last 5 years. That's a tech innovation ETF. So the first thing is people continue to say that it's just some kind of levered thing, which I disagree with, but I also think that's changing this year. When you look at the answer that Perplexity gave on this, it's phenomenal. It's much better than you'll hear from anyone. And so when you hear an answer that is so, you can go through this on your own, pause it, read through it. Great answers. what it's like. Assets with similar moves, yes, similar with tech equities, but it gives specific ones. Tesla, Nvidia. So it's saying equities, but specific ones, not as a whole. Silver, crude oil, inverse relationship to the U.S. dollar. It even goes through why these correlations exist. But then the best one, and the one I'm going to finish with, in terms of what it'll move, its long-term value proposition as digital gold distinguishes itself. So it shares short-term volatility with tech stocks. Its long-term value proposition is digital. As regulatory clarity improves, Bitcoin may further decouple from traditional assets, solidifying its role as a unique store of value. This is what I believe is happening this year. This is why I believe it is completely different than pure technology stocks and is the pure AI trade. And this came from Perplexity, DeepSeek. Great answer. Best one you're going to get. If you want to use something to convince your Wall Street friends, this is the way to do it. I'll see you guys next week.